Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. From the Jethro's Barbecue Studio, I'm Justin Brady. It's storm season. If you haven't noticed, the wind is a little crazy. So we're going to talk about the why. We're going to talk about the prep. We're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about tornadoes. We're going to talk about tornado records. We're going to talk about these stupid frickin' sirens that just go off if someone sneezes across the neighborhood. We're going to talk about those too. At least that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Someone can correct me in the studio right now, who is Todd Rector from the Iowa Storm Chasers Network, joining us today. Todd, thank you so much for coming in the studio.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Really quick note, everybody. Jethro's Barbecue, I'm a chicken wing guy. I can't get out of that. And very soon we're going to be doing $100. You buy a $100 gift card, you get $30 gift card in return from Jethro's. That's going to be on iowapodcast.com. Scroll to the bottom to get that deal. By the way, that's only for iowapodcast.com viewers and listeners and watchers. It's pretty cool. We'll get to that, the whole like tornado siren thing and warning and prep. We're going to get to all that stuff because I have some beef with the National Weather Service and how those things are. And maybe I'm just biased, or maybe I'm bitter about it growing up in Iowa. But 2024, are we going to see? Because last year was a record-setting year for tornadoes, right?
It sure was.
Are we going to see that this year? Are we going to break the record?
Nobody really knows. Nobody really knows. I would like to say no, because tornadoes obviously cause a lot of damage. We don't like to have them. We don't like to see them. But I'm on board with you with the beef on the tornado sirens.
Really? Yeah, we're going to get into that. So let's look at last year, record-breaking year of looks like 125.
Yeah, 125 tornadoes.
And most of those
Iowa.
Come when?
Well, usually April and May. June, we get into July, but we can have tornadoes any time of the year in Iowa. It's just last year it was April and May.
And I should say, like you're more of a storm chaser, but you also have tons of footage that you've collected. It's been used nationally and of course in Europe, and you've covered weather events across the whole country.
I have.
So you've seen this a lot. The 98, I think, was just in April and May alone. And this is the data you sent me ahead of time. So clearly the springtime has an influx. And so we're in that moment right now. So obviously this is going to be the highest tornadic? Is that a word?
Yes, it is a word. Tornadic.
Okay. Yeah. Season of the year. Why is, I'm sure you know this, and maybe some of the listeners think I'm an idiot, but why is spring so active in tornadic activity?
Well, springtime is when we start getting that, we've got obviously the heating, the warm surface heating comes up, and it starts mixing with this, the jet stream will bring up the moist air from the Gulf, and, it'll start to, I could get into the technical aspect of this, but I don't want to bore you too much. But that's just when it starts happening. In the summertime, things cool down a little bit. Not cool down, literally they heat up. And we get a heat dome over the central U.S., and that's what keeps us from having storms generally in July and August and September.
Yeah, so it's a spring phenomenon, but you mentioned that tornadoes can happen any time of the year. Can they happen in the winter, though, in the middle of winter?
Oh, they sure can.
Really?
December a few years ago was a massive, 125, I think it was.
Wait, what? Oh, 125 in the whole year, yes.
But right. I can't remember the exact number. In December, we had, there was a derecho a few years ago in December, and that spawned 63 tornadoes, I think it was.
Yeah.
New record, for December, for sure.
And why? What is up with that? Is it just that the super high winds created a bunch of mini little vortexes? Is that or
that is exactly what happened?
So these aren't the normal. They were technically tornadoes, but not formed as a normal tornado might be formed.
Right. They don't come from a mesa cyclone. They are just spun up because of heavy wind shear and fast moving storms.
So 63 is I think that was the record during a month, right? Or that was would have been the record in one day?
In December.
Oh, in December. Oh, in December. So that would have been a record because of the derecho or whatever.
Yes.
Got it. And so was that in the span of just 24 hours then?
Yeah.
Gosh, that is crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy.
So do you have, so December, I always think of winter. I kind of think of no tornadoes.
Snow tornadoes.
Yeah. Like this is not the right season, guys. Like you're not supposed to. But here's a question I've always wondered, because is it just me, or when we get these nice clear days in Iowa and it feels like spring has sprung, we're done with the winter weather, does it always seem like there is a hidden snowstorm waiting around the corner after we think we finally escape winter's clutches?
That is exactly what happens. We have low pressure centers, which are associated with storms. They are counterclockwise rotating on a large scale in the U.S. And what happens is that we'll see the leading edge of that. We'll get southerly winds, which will bring up the warm, Gulf moisture. It'll spawn storms, and then as that passes through, it'll drag down cold air from Canada. And if the timing is right in the spring, we'll get snow from it. So you'll have snow the day after, or 2 days after.
So so this is a thing.
It is a thing.
Because I've always wondered every year. I'm like, I feel like I'm noticing that when spring is here, we get into the spring weather and the tornadoes and the rain. I always feel like we always get it's like always a surprise. You think you've cleared it, but then you get hit with like another blizzard or something. This actually happened like a couple weeks ago, right? We had that crazy blizzard after some warm weather.
Yeah, spring is nuts in Iowa. It really is. It's actually a lot of fun, I think, for me as a weather nerd. But yeah, it's crazy. It's always associated with, we've got the boys state basketball or the wrestling happens, and you can almost count on a blizzard happening then.
Yeah, so early season in March is notorious for like really, really fast moving weather, really crazy. Does it make your job, because you chase storms,
right,
you collect data, does this make your job really, really hard then, because it's almost impossible to predict this stuff?
It absolutely does. When the fast moving storms, they can be predictable, to some degree, a day or two out, but they're going to be so fast moving. I mean, we have storms that are going to be moving 60, 70 miles an hour, and there's no way you can catch up with those. You pretty much put yourself in a position where you can observe what's going past you, but once it's passed, there's no way you can keep up. I mean, Iowa has a grid layout for our roads, so you have to zigzag and zigzag and zigzag, and then every once in a while there's a small town where you're going to have to go down to 25 miles an hour. There's just no way you can keep up with that. And
those sheriffs in small towns, they park themselves right by those like decline in speed limits. That's where they park.
It's almost like they know we're coming.
It's almost we know there are tornadoes coming. We know people are chasing them, but we're going to park right here because we might be able to snag a few people.
Absolutely. Increase the revenue for the small towns in Iowa.
So
I'm talking to you, Maxburg.
Oh, he's calling someone out. Great. I don't know who that is, so don't come after me. By the way, did I introduce my guest, Todd Rector? Todd, what's your email address? Just kidding. So I wanted to talk to you about the chasing business, because I don't even know if that's the right word to use, the chasing business, because all we know as Iowans is like what we saw on Twister. Like that's literally all we know.
Well, I'm sorry. It's just
is that remotely accurate? I mean, obviously some things are obviously sensationalized,
right?
But give people a breakdown of what your day-to-day actually looks like this spring, and what, are you driving at high speeds across cornfields to try to get this stuff, or is it a little bit more calculated than that, and has technology changed?
Hang on, let me bring out my cheat sheet. We always drive at safe speeds at or below the speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
So
officially.
Yeah. Well, we have, a typical day, we would forecast a few days in advance where we think there's going to be tornadic weather. We'll drive there the night before, once we've got our target, drive there the night before, spend the night in a hotel, get up in the morning, look at the freshest weather data, and then we'll try to position ourselves where a storm is going to form. And we're usually pretty accurate. We can get within maybe 7,500 miles of it, yeah. And then we wait till, the afternoon heating happens. We look at certain data models, and we can usually predict within an hour or two when the storms start forming. We then look on radar. We find the storm that looks like it's going to produce for us, and we'll start following that mesocyclone. That's when we start the cameras rolling. We either live stream or a lot of our money that is actually made is from selling that video when we get tornado video, or if there's, God forbid, damage, to a town, we will stop, shoot some of the damage, but we also help out at the town. That's where we stop the chase. We carry a gas wrench in our vehicle. We carry a water wrench in our vehicle. We have hard hats. We have gloves. We are prepared to help the citizens. If we encounter a tree in the road, for example, we have a push bumper and we also have tow chains. We will pull that tree out of the road so that when EMS is ready to come through, they don't have to stop for it. We do our best to help any town that's been hit.
So I think a lot of people just assume you're there, you're a fly on the wall, you capture your footage and you're out. But that's not actually the case. You're actually getting involved, and in some ways, you're first responding. I don't want to, tick off first responder. It's a very hard job. It's not the same thing. But in some ways, you're really, really helping out on the first response. Is this a normal thing that storm chasers do?
There are. If you ask 1,000 storm chasers the same question, you'd get 1,000 different answers.
Sure, yeah.
But that's what we do. Some of the people just go right by and they keep going after the storm. But we ourselves, we will stop and help as best we possibly can in whatever capacity we can. So, I'm a former paramedic EMT, by the way, and one of the guys I travel with is also an EMT. So, we carry a trauma kit. We can't really, technically as a good Samaritan, we can use it, but yeah, we're equipped to help.
That's fascinating. I didn't understand that you have such a lead time predicting this activity. That you have enough lead time where you're renting hotels and you're like in certain cities before things happen. Now, are these like educated guesses where sometimes you anticipate activity is going to happen and then just nothing happens?
Yes.
Is that happen quite a bit?
Oh, well, I drove to the Texas Panhandle one time and got nothing but a sunburn. So, but at the same time, I also got a phone call one day saying, can you meet me in Amarillo? It's tomorrow afternoon. I'm like, yeah, let's go. So I got up at 4 a.m, drove to Amarillo, and by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we were getting beat by hail. But we also got a really good storm.
So when we see footage captured of these tornadoes that's like professionally done, some of those storm chasers, they were positioned there on purpose because they knew the chances of getting that footage were pretty good.
Right, days in advance.
Wow, that's crazy. I always just I always thought that you would just, when there's tornadoes that pop up and you get the data, you just rush across the state to go collect that. But in reality, you're positioned ahead of time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy. So I know that the technology has changed considerably to track tornadic activity, to track storms, like Doppler. I think everybody forgets Doppler came out in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
That's when it started getting installed. But things have changed considerably since then, even like dual polar. I did some nerd research here. Dual polarization radar. Like that, the National Weather Service did a major upgrade, which was finally completed in 2013. So your ability to predict and determine data has changed considerably, even in the last decade.
Well, the radar for us is, real-time radar. So, we can't predict using radar.
Right.
So, we use different type of models, to, sure. The HRRR, we use the NAM, I could name all sorts of initials, but we use that information to get to where we believe a storm is going to form. And then once we're on a storm is when the radar really comes in handy. So we can position ourselves in an area that is, that we know is not dangerous, or that we, sometimes that we know is dangerous, so that we can get good footage.
So is there a debate within the storm chasing community then? Because I'm putting two pieces together here, which is piece one is in 2024, we had like record tornadic activity.
Oh yeah.
And then piece two is, but since 1990 and even as late as 2013, probably more recent, I don't know, you'd know more than I would, our technology to track and monitor and log this stuff has improved. So is tornadic activity increasing, or is our ability to track it and document it increasing? Or is it maybe a little bit of both?
I think maybe it's a little bit of both because now, everybody and their dog has a cell phone now. And so
that's also true.
So grandma out in the middle of nowhere on her farm, sees a tornado, she can shoot video of it or call someone, I think a lot of the tornadoes that have happened in the past have occurred. They've just been undocumented. There's out in the field, nobody's seen them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so do you use that data, like crowdsourced data, like in modeling or to help you determine, does that help at all when people are like, for a news standpoint, if someone's sharing camera footage on the news, it's super cool. Like, someone shot it in the backyard. That's really, really cool from a news standpoint. And I have to say, people, if you're going to shoot extreme weather or cool news events, can you try to hold the camera still? Like, because you never notice they're like,
go horizontal.
Yeah.
You go horizontal.
Yeah.
Don't hold it like this. Go horizontal.
We don't want to see an image of your feet either. Like, try to keep it focused, everybody. But
but also be safe doing so. Be at a safe distance. And if you're in danger, seek,
I'm an Iowan. We're not safe when we do any storm, because what happens in Iowa when we hear about a tornado, what the first thing we all do is?
Run out to the porch.
It's exactly what we all do. Don't do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Sorry.
It's,
this is not advice. This is not advice for you. It's just what I do. I am an East Sider in Des Moines, and like the East Siders, that's what we do too. But does this data that everyone's collecting, does that change how storm chasers operate in any way? Like, can you compile all that?
It can be compiled, yeah. And I think some people use it. I don't specifically use it, but I mean, there are certain places in Iowa where I think we are more prone to having tornadoes. But again, they're unpredictable. They do what they want.
Yeah. Has the lead time, like the ability to warn people? Because I think the common thing is, boy, I wish I could be right half the time and still keep my job like the weather guys.
I've heard that.
Yeah, of course. But has the lead time, by the data, are we getting more accurate, and are we able to warn people further out when it comes to tornadoes and severe weather? Like just the data alone, are we getting way better at it?
Well, that is where the, quote unquote storm chasers come in handy, because we provide what's known as ground truth, where the National Weather Service, many times, we have little spotter dots where they can see where we are
really?
on a map, and they plot where we are. If we are near something that is a point of interest for them, they will actually call us on the phone and say, what are you seeing? And, and conversely, if we have something, we have a line directly to the National Weather Service, and we can say, hey, we've got a tornado on the ground where it's traveling this fast. We're at this GPS location. We can get the information out. Now, what happens between them getting the information and how long it takes Littletown, Iowa to actually trigger the tornado sirens, that's a completely different thing.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen immediately.
Really?
And like you were saying, one of the problems with the tornado sirens is if there is a tornado that is clear down at the edge of Polk County, all of the sirens in Polk County will go off, and you might be in Altoona and have blue skies over you, and you're just like, what in the heck is this?
Wait a minute. Okay, this actually is a really good point you brought up. How does the system actually work? Because naturally, I would assume if there's tornadic activity in Des Moines proper, then the Des Moines proper tornado sirens will go off. But this is not how it works?
Well, some cities subscribe to this and some don't, but generally it's a Polk County thing. So Polk County will trip, the sirens. There are places where if you're in the warning box, they'll trip everything in the warning box, which I think is a good idea. But
really?
Yeah. I mean, but again, you come to that point where it's the, boy who cried wolf thing where,
right.
I've heard these sirens so many times. And to complicate things, now they're setting them off when we're having winds over a certain speed.
Yep.
And if what they need to do, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is they need to have a different sound for the siren to let you know what's coming. Have a different sound. That's only high wind. I'm going to go, tie down the, patio furniture.
Right.
Rather than I'm going to hide the basement with my dog. So.
Yeah, because there is we have that discussion. I think a lot of Iowans do, which is when the sirens go off, if you can hear them, then you're like, you look outside, you're like, should we go downstairs or should we not go downstairs? I'm in the middle of a project. Maybe I'll just wait. I'll just wait and see if things get a little tornadic and if things get crazy. And if they do, then maybe we'll rush downstairs. That's literally the conversation I have with my wife every time.
No, I think you're right. I think most people are like that.
Yeah. And like you said, there is a name for this, everyone. I don't know if it applies. You may have a different name for it in the weather world or in the storm chasing world. But at least in IT and technology, it's called alert fatigue. And alert fatigue, by the way, was responsible for the MasterCard hack years and years ago. They had the early warning signs. They knew there was an attack happening. They actually knew, but they ignored the signs because they got so many alerts every day. They just started ignoring it. And I think, like, boy who cried wolf, I really think this is what's happening in the weather, because like most Iowans do know that the weather sirens are triggered for just high winds. And so when those go off, we're like, whatever.
Yeah, well, there's no high wind here, so.
Right. And so you're saying that you agree that it's just they trigger them way too often.
Well, I don't know that they trigger them way too often. They just trigger them in such a way that people can't distinguish what type of danger they're in. And I think we have the technology to change that. But again, I don't know how effective whether or how often we're even going to see tornado sirens in the future, because now everyone has a phone, and we get alerts over the phone, and they can geographically, anyone who's in this cell, set it off. Anyone who's in this cell, set it off. And I think that is ultimately going to be more effective.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. So we have that technology now where they can alert you based on your GPS or your triangulation of where your cell phone is?
Whatever cell tower you're connected to, they just fire off everything in that cell tower.
God, because that makes sense, because I have been in like different cities that I'm not familiar with, and all of a sudden a flood warning goes off on my phone. So yeah, clearly they're generally tracking our locations. And so you think okay, so there are a few things here. One, I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is if they trigger the sirens at all, or if they trigger them on time. So how are these sirens triggered? Is there someone who has to run to a building somewhere and throw a big switch? I'm assuming it sounds like they're not automatic and they're not triggered by the weather people. You have to get in touch with a local town and tell them to trigger it? Like, how does this process work?
In Polk County, it is the Polk County Sheriff that sets them off.
Really?
Yes.
And they have is there a big red button somewhere?
I've never seen it, but I suspect that is the case, yes.
Yeah, okay. So there is literally like lights go off, or there's a phone call or something, and someone has to run through the office and smash the red button. Is this kind of what's going on?
I cannot confirm or deny.
We want to know. We want to know.
That is what I think. I mean, they will announce over, Polk County's radio frequency that there's a tornado warning in effect for, Polk County, and then they will set off the sirens. Mm-hmm. And they're set off by a sequence of tones, which is funny because if you know the tones and you know the frequency, you can set them off.
What?
So, yeah. You didn't hear that from me.
No.
Well,
has this ever happened?
No. I don't know.
Have you done it yourself?
All I know is that I am pretty certain that I could do it if I wanted to.
So there is a open frequency. If you're like a ham radio operator, you could probably find it. Which you are. So there is an open. Okay. All right. Hold on. In Iowa, the weather alarms are activated by a frequency you can find on a ham radio and sending a sequence of tones through that open frequency. I
don't know if that's how it happens today, but yes, in the very recently. Yeah,
and some counties and cities throughout the country still operate that way, obviously.
I'm certain.
So if you know what that frequency is, anybody could just set it off.
Yeah, if it was like at 154.310, you could hear, not that it's there, but you can check the tones. You can hear them every time, the first Saturday of every month, at 12 o'clock, you just listen for the tones. You can hear them, and then you hear your sirens go off. I believe that if you record those tones and know the subtone, you could set them off.
And wait, these things are
Am I a terrible person for saying this?
No, not at all. I think this is actually really important information, truthfully, because people need to know that the system in which that keeps us all safe may not be as rock solid as we once thought it was. And, the Iowa legislature is not going to do anything if they don't know there's a problem, and nor are citizens going to ask for it to be done. And the fact that it's all over an open radio signal and anybody could just broadcast tones it depends. Are these signals in various cities aren't being automatically activated through those tones, are they? Or is it just completely automatic? If they hear the tones, there's some system that does that.
I think that's how it happens. If they hear the tones, that the siren will go off.
Oh, so it is automatic then?
Yes.
Oh, got it. So there is some system that's listening to the tones that just automatically triggers in that city when it hears the tones.
Yep. I mean,
wow.
I don't know that for a fact.
Right. That's just how it has operated.
I strongly suspect it, yes.
And how it currently operates in many cities. That's
right.
crazy.
But like I say, I see tornado sirens, becoming less and less of a warning device anyway, because most people can't hear them inside.
I can't hear them. We have a small house.
Mm-hmm.
People know this. We have like a 700 some square foot house. It's not like a massive mansion, and we're upstairs most of the time. And when the tornado siren goes off, I have to open my door and go outside to see if I can actually hear it.
I can hear it in my house, but it certainly wouldn't wake me up.
Oh, heck no. Absolutely not.
But that's where cell phones,
yeah,
you get to beep over your cell phone. It's, like the same, when they have a Amber Alert, for example.
Right.
And your phone goes off and then you're annoyed because it's, something that happened in Dubuque or something.
Right.
But you still hear it. And
right. So our phones, if it's on your device, and I'll actually ask you that too, but our phones are capable, and are they pretty accurate? Like 100% of the time they're going to nail it every time, or are they still a little spotty on the extreme weather thing?
Oh, I'd say they're spotty. It takes someone to interpret where they believe the tornado is going to be, and then they're going to have to trigger it. And again, I don't know that the technology exists. I don't know that we're using it right now, but it exists. So I see that becoming more and more prevalent in the future. Technology is always changing, but it's getting better and better and better. So I'm hoping the lead time, is going to be better. I'm hoping people are just going to, pay attention to this stuff. The derecho that we had a couple of years ago, wow, we knew that was coming. I watched it coming down from, South Dakota. I had hours of lead time on that. And I don't know why, they weren't just really screaming about it. I went out, it was a Monday, it was trash day for me. I went and pulled my trash back into my garage, and my neighbors were like, what are you doing that for? I'm like, wait 20 minutes and ask me again, but you better do it too. And next thing you know, woo, trash cans flying around, and the wind was screaming and howling. It was crazy.
Why is there such you're mentioning that someone like yourself, and I'm guessing you don't have $1 billion house with satellites all over it and incredible technology. I'm guessing you don't have the resources by yourself as the National Weather Service. So how are you so far out on these weather events? But even our own weather teams, National Weather Service, and us ourselves are so far behind. It's not a technology thing. It's a communication breakdown. Is this what you're telling me?
I think so. I'm not going to disparage any of the local weather teams or any of the National Weather Service people who work really hard and are very good at what they do. But we use their resources.
Right,
we
of course.
Look at their radar that they provide. We look at the models that are coming down. So we use the same models that they do to see what's happening.
Yeah, it's not the people or technology. It sounds like it's the communication breakdown, the ability to get the data to the front end and the people actually living in these areas. That sounds like that's what the challenge is.
And the derecho thing, specifically, that was one where people are going to think the boy cried wolf because they're going to hear the sirens. They're going to think, what the heck? There's nothing happening. And they don't see that, just half an hour from now, they are going to get absolutely obliterated. Look what it did to, half the state.
Oh, yeah. So how do the phones work then? Is this a different system? I'm assuming the phones, like my phone, when it alerts me of flash flooding or high winds or whatever, I'm assuming that's not being alerted through a radio signal and tones coming through. There's someone who has their finger on that buzzer as well. Do you know how that system works and where they get their information from?
I don't, but I believe that that's what happens. All it does, someone types in a message and hits enter, and there it goes to the phones. Who's authorized to do that and who actually sends it is, I do not know.
Right. It's outside of your scope. You're the one on the ground finding the data and reporting it to the National Weather Service and the local weather people, but you're not the one building all the technology and comms stuff.
Right. But I do know that every time I'm in a tornado warning or tornado warned area, my phone is, letting me know.
Just pretty quick.
Yeah, it is pretty quick.
So as far, I want to leave this with prep stuff. Like, what should people do to be to prepare for the severe weather season, but then also make sure they're getting proper alerts and information? Because people are probably like, well, okay, so the tornado sirens suck and they're rarely, accurate. So what are the real steps I should do? So I'm the one pulling my trash in 20 minutes early. I'm the one that actually has the accurate information, and I'm not getting, suckered by alert fatigue. What are the real prep steps?
Well, alert fatigue is a big thing, but, I think what's more important than than whether or not you are alerted is being prepared for when something really goes down. And that is, have a plan, have everyone in your family know that, if you're not home or if you're, no matter where you're at, get to, the interior and lowest floor of a building you can, if it doesn't have a basement, but make sure that you put as many walls as you can between yourself and, the outside, world. State bathrooms specifically are usually safe. They have a lot of pipes running through them, which are solid, and they help reinforce the walls, and they're small. So bathrooms are generally a very safe place if they're on the interior of a building.
That's fascinating. I've heard bathrooms before, but I didn't understand why. And you're saying there's two reasons, well, probably three. They're interior, often.
Typically.
So obviously, maybe that's a good clarification point, an interior bathroom. But they're probably a denser structure because there's more framing covering a tighter space.
Right.
But then they're also running a bunch of pipes through there, which further strengthen the space, which I would have never thought about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And, even if stuff really goes down and you hear your roof coming off, I would get in the shower. Where it's a small contained area that has even more additional walls or protection.
Especially if you have like a tub or something with the structure on the sides.
If it came down to it and my house was, getting blown away, I would be in the tub.
Yeah, fascinating. So maybe if you have the forethought, fill it up with some nice hot water no, just kidding. Don't do that.
Take a little bath, it's might as well, because fill it up because the power is going to be out for a while.
Yeah.
But make sure that everyone in your family knows that no matter where they're at, they should always do something like that. Because tornadoes, they have minds of their own and they will strike anytime they want to. And, you might not be home.
What other things should we be doing? Should we have battery backups on phones? Or if the weather's that bad, the phone towers are going to be down. Should we have radios? Should we have spare food? Should we have water on hand? I think the derecho was an eye-opener for a lot of Iowans because they're like, oh, it did take a while for emergency services to get to my area because there were so many things down. Maybe I should kind of be prepared. Like, what's the general checklist of do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this? And then we will make sure to put this all on iowapodcast.com in like bullet form so you have all the information there.
Have a little bit of food, have a little bit of water. Make sure you take care of your pets. Make sure you know where your medication is if you take daily medication. Just simple things like that. Have a radio that is battery powered, and maybe have a charger for your phone in case you're out of power. I mean, the derecho knocked out internet. It knocked out cell. There was no cell. I don't think there was any cell tower that was up between Marshalltown and Cedar Rapids.
Wow.
Because I know that I was working with the National News Network to do some coverage near Vinton, Iowa, where I was doing some drone work for them to show damage. And I had to come all the way back to Ankeny before I could actually get my video out because there was no cell tower available, just nothing. And there were trees were down everywhere.
Right.
Emergency services had problems because, small town emergency services, their buildings are destroyed. They can't get anywhere. There are trees down everywhere.
Sure.
So
sometimes you're on your own, people. And that's like something to prepare for. I think
it is. Absolutely.
There's some bias. I don't know the name of it, but there's some bias where we tend to we tend to refuse to acknowledge scenarios that are unlikely to happen. Like I don't know what that is, but basically, if it's unlikely to happen, therefore it will never happen to me. And so get over that bias and just realize, hey, that one time you're prepared, it might actually save your life or help you.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, let's look at, Greenfield, Iowa last year.
Oh,
I
right.
mean, what a terrible scene. I mean, I was there.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Wow.
Yeah, people need to be prepared for things like that. They need to be prepared that maybe their hospital is not going to be available.
Sure.
And that maybe EMS and services are going to take a while to get there.
So medical kits?
Medical
your house?
Yeah, I have a first aid kit. I have a huge first aid kit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably something you can buy, and the shelf life on that is what, 10 years or something?
Oh, they've got a long shelf life for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I will say we have like a food bucket at our house. We have a food bucket and we have a gravity fed water filter. It's a water drop. I can post the show note link in the show notes, but basically it works if there's no power. So if I just go get a bucket from a stream or something, I can just dump it in the top and it'll filter it almost entirely and put some pills in there for the bacteria or whatever. But so we have that stuff just in case something happened. And the derecho was a big eye opener for me. Any other things we should have on hand or be prepared for?
Well, if you're in a spotty area, I'd always have a weather radio
Yep.
that is capable of waking you up. Those have the same problems that the sirens have, where the county will set them off, and there you go. But it's better than nothing.
Do those long-range walkie-talkies work? I've never bought one, but some of them have like a 200-mile range, and you don't need a ham license to operate them. It's like you can create your own mesh network. Have you used these things? Do these work really well?
I am not familiar with those, but only because I am a ham operator and I do have ham equipment in all my vehicles. And, I also have, a 1,000-watt pure sine wave inverter in one of my cars. So, I can power, if I need power or anything, I've got it.
Yeah, and I will say the one thing we should probably do is you have an app, I think. And, obviously, Todd Rector, Iowa Storm Chasers Network, you have an app, I believe, that people can download if they want data straight from you guys.
We do. Yes, we have the ISCN weather app. Go to iowaweather.com, which is our website, and we have links to download it from there. It's free for both Android and Apple. And it's a good weather app. It'll give you forecast information. It'll give you your current temperature. If you want to monitor grandma who lives in Poughkeepsie, you can set up her, and you can flip over, and it'll give you alerts if she's in a I guess more likely to have lake effect snow up there, but it'll let you know. And it's alerts we can set up alerts for anything or nothing. I mean, you can set up to only be alerted for tornadoes or what looks like, a tornadic activity. You can be set up for, lightning has occurred within 15 miles of your location.
Oh, wow.
Tons and tons of alerts.
And this is all push alerts stuff?
I'm sorry?
These are all like push alerts? It'll wake your phone up and push this stuff to you if you want?
Yep.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's a really good idea. And I will say a lot of people, I do know this much as we wrap this up. I do know that a lot of people assume that the National Weather Service generates reports and then just the local people push those same reports out and they don't do much. I actually know that's not true, that the local individuals like yourself have unique data sets and are way more accurate than national. Like you indicated earlier, the National Weather Service actually relies on people like you and local weather people to get stuff right. So probably a good investment to download the app. Definitely not a paid sponsorship. I think it's a good resource. Todd Rector, the Iowa Storm Chasers Network. Thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa podcast.